Hi everyone, welcome to my Shoreline Studio. I'm Sybille Muschik. Behind the camera is Joshua Blanc. Today we're talking about vermilion and the many ways it's being used. And we thought we'd do a dusk scene to really put it in its place. And I have a scene that is just outside my window looking towards the lake. And I saw it the other night, and the sun had long gone down, and it was just a tiny bit of light left. It's very dark, and yet it had this tremendous glow. And the reason was the vermilion. Vermilion has been used by many artists in the past. Look up Vermeer, some beautiful fabrics and things that he did with the vermilion. And of course, Titian. So, Titian used it almost in every gown of, any important person. It was sort of a calling card for him. So be sure and look up some of those pieces. Vermilion came from, well, a variety of sources in the past. Red has always been, the color of life, blood, and so forth. And vermilion in particular is sort of a reddish orange, or an orangey red, however you want to put it. And it came originally from cochineal, which is a kind of mollusk, and the dye from that was prized. Then later it came from mercury sulfide, which is very toxic. And, maybe a lot of artists, expired early because they were using very toxic materials. Now, of course, we're using more of a chemical combination, and it's not toxic anymore, but it probably doesn't have the flair that the original vermilion did. So we will do our best with our printmaking inks today. We're using Sybille, and we're going to use some yellow and some red. And the Sybille inks don't have designations like alizarin crimson and so forth. This is sort of a cool red, a little bit like alizarin crimson, but a little bit lighter. And then a type of phthalo blue, it just says blue.
Short and to the point.
Exactly. So, but it is on the cool side, so it's more of a phthalo blue. And then our yellow, we have two yellows actually. This is sort of a lemon yellow, and then I have another one that's a little bit warmer, so it has a little bit of red in it, so this is called dark yellow. Anyway, we're also going to be using something called inked extender. It's a block printing medium, and I'm putting it on the plate first so that we don't have much beading. So this is a little trick for you. So here's the original photograph that I took, and I've upped it a little bit because that night the reds and vermilion were very, very intense. And the computer, and the printer don't quite do it justice. And of course, that's why we have painting, because as painters, we can, bump things up and express it the way we feel about it. And here's my first little run at this exercise. So it's a painterly print. You can, of course, work back into it to, intensify some of the blacks and things, but I kind of like the quality of it. So let's see if we can get something close to this and maybe a little bit more intense. So I have registered my paper. This is just my Canson sketch paper. We're going to be needing to wet it. So I didn't want a really thick paper because we're going to need to wet it first from the back. And then later on, when we do the second run, we have to, do the back again, and that might, give problems. So I've already put out some paint, and we're going to start, with this medium. So I'm just going to move my palette a little bit so we can check on our registration too, make sure everything is tight. So we're just going to paint some medium on here. Often as you know, gel plate printers, we use mineral oil to clean the plate. So that leaves an oily surface and your paint is bound to bead a little bit. So it's something we don't want. I've already wet my brush and we're just going to smear this on here. And you can see already, even though I was very careful to clean this plate to make sure that it didn't bead on us, but it is anyway. Yeah. But that's all right. So a little bit more. And then we're probably going to polish this plate. Just a little bit of paper towel. And hopefully this first coating of the medium, I might even put a little bit more on. And just polish the stuff down. And we'll be mixing the medium with the paint as well for the same reason. We don't want beading in this case. Sometimes it comes in handy. It happened to bead when I did the little lady slipper in a previous episode. And it looked fabulous as such. Now, if you don't have the medium, you could try just like Dawn detergent and take a tiny bit and then polish it onto your plate. And that will help as well. Not to the point where you're blowing bubbles with it, but... Okay, we're going to start just with some of the basic shapes. All our... Josh will put this on the monitor so that you can sort of follow along. And I'm just going to place it in front of me for reference. So, starting with a small brush. Now I could start with black, and I did in this case, but it will mix a bit with the color, and we want to keep our vermilion as incredible as it can be. So starting with black, I'm going to add a little bit of our medium to it. And we're only going to be doing the landscape. We're going to be doing 2 runs. The second one is the trees. So I just want to put the landscape in to give us a reference point as to where the cloud shapes are. Just below the half for the landscape. And it's not beading on us, so that's good. And then the shoreline. And don't forget to keep that straight. I have so many people who paint shorelines of lakes and things, and it's sort of running up or downhill. Whatever. I have a tendency to for my hand to run downhill, so I have to really watch that. Okay, and then the reflection. And that's it for a detail of that. We can add I'm just going to do some brush strokes to indicate foliage, trees and foreground trees, whatever. And they'll be a little bit on the gray side because they're in the distance. So as always, when you're doing painting on the gel plate, make it painterly. So a variety of brush strokes, mark making, all those kinds of things. You could, of course, do this with a stencil, do some cutouts, and of course you can also do it, you know, with a graphite transfer. All those other things are possible, and part of your vocabulary if you've been following all our little YouTube videos. And don't forget to, you know, like and subscribe and hit the little bell. It all helps. It's great. Oh, and I love the comments. I'm just getting such great comments. Yeah, we could use a lot more. Never satisfied. Okay, so then the reflection should be just a tad darker, and you can maybe do your marks a little bit more zigzaggy if you like. Leave some of the white space because sometimes there's just a glimmer at the edge of the blend that is reflected in the water. My image, I have flipped it horizontally so that we get it the way I see it. So that means that we can take out a little bit in here. And this is all an interesting part. Now we're going to do some of the shapes. And you should always be thinking about shapes, not about, you know, naming, you know, this is a cloud, this is a tree, this is such and such. Think about the shapes, you know, that it's going up or down or receding, or it's roundish or it's oblong or whatever. Now we're going to mix that vermilion. So usually with mixing, you start with the lightest color. So I'm going to start with the brightest yellow here. Add some of our deeper yellow. I just want to keep it as intense as we can possibly get it. Now when you add color to color, it's, you know, always sometimes best to get it out of the tube, but we don't always have that privilege because as you add colors together, they take down in hue, so it becomes less intense. These colors have a touch of white in them, so you're going to get this a little bit more opaque. And I think that's pretty good. So we'll block in all the shapes for the vermilion before we print this. So Josh is going to put a little episode, not an episode, an interlude. Sometimes it's an episode. Anyway. Right, okay, we're going to block in this vermilion. And it's just, and try not to get into the black if you can help it. A little bit of our medium. Just a touch of moisture. And we'll brush it out. I'm just going up and down into the... I really want to make it as intense as possible. And in the end, I'm just going to put the red over top of the trees, and then it won't matter if we pick up black or not. Okay, and then we have sort of a large streak going. Let's get the shape of this. And then it lightens up a little bit. Again, just a tad of water and the medium. Okay, so in here we're lightening up. This is what made the sky so interesting, because there were these blocks of different colors. Like streaks here and there. And of course, you don't have to slavishly follow, you know, your photograph. Okay, so we will have a little bit more up here, just for interest's sake. And then clean your brush. And again, except this time use the vermilion and a little bit more of the red, and add an ever so slight touch of the violet. This is probably dioxazine violet. And you see how that deepens the color? You could use black, but I want to stay in the violet range. Okay, so now we can add it down in here. And some of this is blue. In this case, be careful not to leave white spots. Work right to the edge of the plate. And then again, take some of the red out and go back into your yellow mixture. And then there's a spot of blue in here, so we're just going to start with this. And this color is just perfect. A little bit of, and there's this shape in here. And I left some of the red in the brush because it gives some variation. It's not just a one tone. Which makes the painterly effect more interesting. And just above that, we'll pull some of this out. Okay, now we can put that above the tree line. And I want to make sure to eliminate any white here. You vary your brush strokes. I had quite a number of students for learning to paint, and this is, for some reason, they find it really difficult to just switch. You know, they like to hold it, and some of them like hold it like this. And you want to be making sure that you're holding it at a good length. We all learn, you know, in some way, and it's so much fun to watch beginners when they first start, and the level of concentration is so great. I love to see it. And you can always learn something from a student's work, because they come up with their own ways of working. It's just amazing. Okay, sure we've gotten down into the... So you can do a little bit of negative painting here, just get right down in between the trees. And then there's that one little area on the lake. We'll just lighten that up a little bit. And right here. There was a bit on this side too. That will be probably covered up with trees, but we'll put it in to begin with. Okay, so I'm just going to switch brushes. Now we're going to get into the blue. So I'm going to try and keep the blue a little more fluid. We'll mix a lot of the medium into it. So we're going to get those really big cloud shapes. So in here, and of course the yellow, you know, is a good counterpoint to the blue. And of course the orange part of it is a complement. And then there's a big bank of this blue cloud in here. Let's see, down in here in between. Just went right to the bottom here. Letting some of that orange peek through. So keep these shapes really interesting. And so far we're not beating up. Very good. Okay, just making sure we have that intensity here. And then when you add it to the water, be sure and put in some of the violet. It brings it closer to an ultramarine blue. And you can see the intensity of it in the photograph. Again, strokes are probably more downward. And here across. The downward strokes sort of help with the feeling of water. And as you come forward here, it could be even deeper. When we print this first layer, you have another opportunity to, adjust anything if you have white areas and such. That's nice about doing it in 2 stages. Okay, and then finally, just rinse this out a bit. Now we're going to start with the white. A little bit of the medium. And then we're going to add the blue to it. For those lighter blue areas. Okay. Now, don't forget it's dusk. It's not a sunset. The sun is long gone down. It's that last little glimmer of light that you see just before it becomes really, really dark. Okay, so we're just going to paint this in. And it's sort of a little bit residual, kind of a glow in the sky. Again, vary your color a little bit. Doesn't all have to be the same. Okay, we're drying ever so slightly here. More medium. It's not quite like oil painting. In oil painting, you can put in one stroke With printmaking, often you have to go over areas. I mean, it would be nice if you had just one stroke to do to say what you want to say, but it never quite works that way. And especially if you're doing more than one pass, then you may have to adjust here and there. So that's the joy of printmaking. I'm going to add some of that tone to here. And in here. Okay, I think, oops, we have a few spots here where it just separated. So then think about it, have we got some interesting shapes? Do the shapes work together? Have we made sure there's no white showing where you don't want it? So far, so good. Okay, we're going to print this first page and we'll see. But before you do that, you have to let this dry, and then you wet this side of the paper and damp it dry, and then, which is, you'd think you should be able to print it here because it's all still wet, but that's not the way it works. So we're going to let this dry, so Josh will do an interlude, and we will be right back. Okay, notice I've got water on this side and a brush on this side. I just put a tiny drop of water on there and I had to repaint it. So, but all is good, and now we're ready to add some water to this page. And you can saturate it quite a bit so that there's a shine on the paper, because you're going to be damping it dry anyway. I mean, don't get carried away, but just make sure that all parts of the paper are damp. No dry spots. And you can go up and down just to make sure, and sideways. Okay, so keep this out of harm's way. Towel at the ready. And then just blot it off. Enough so that there's no shine on the paper anywhere. Don't put so much water on the paper that it buckles. This drawing paper is pretty good. Okay, well now we flip it across. You can use your Baron. Make sure there's no warps or bubbles. And especially along the side here, I found it didn't print all that great next to the tape, so make sure that that's solid there. And now you wait again. You'll feel when some of that really coolness goes off. That, and you can of course take a peek to see if anything has happened. Ooh, it looks really good. Oops, see what I mean about that corner? Okay. Oh, we're going to just put it back. Because it's in registration, it's not a problem putting it back. So this corner might have been a little bit dry. What you can do in that case is you can wet it from the back. I think because it buckled a little bit there. And then you can damp it off. And then just give it a few more minutes. We were in a hurry to get it off, right? So impatient. Anyway, we're going to leave it for a bit. We'll do a nice little interlude. Don't you just love Josh's photography in these interludes? He takes lots of special care and makes it precisely fit to the video. He has a really unique vision of what he wants to, pair with our subject. So enjoy. So I just want to show you my little heat tool. It's a creative craft tool, creative TM, whatever that means. And it's great, and I use it all the time if I'm in a hurry to dry things. Now, the reveal. Okay, we got our corner. Perfect. So now the final part is just to block in our trees. I'm not washing the brushes extra carefully because having some of that paint left in it will, because we're using black, that makes the black maybe a little bit more interesting. Protect our print so you can see the process. So a couple of brushes here. So we're going to add more medium to the black. And just a touch of water. So it's workable. So obviously we're not going to put that tree right dead center. So we're going to block in the, this is a birch tree here on the side. And this there's several trees in here actually, but primarily it's a big birch tree. Two big birch trees. Okay. And then we're just going to do a little bit of stippling. These will go right up and down. You're looking through sort of a canopy of foliage. And have fun with this, you know, play around with the marks. Maybe use a different brush for some of the leaf shapes. Like this one. And you can add maybe a touch of the blue to this, because they might be reflecting the blue of the sky, and to be maybe a little bit lighter than the tree trunks themselves. And it's not quite a weeping birch, but close. There is a weeping birch in there, but you won't be seeing that one because it's further over this way. But give the effect of the leaves sort of weeping downwards. And in position here. Make the shapes fun and interesting, like vary them quite a bit. Don't forget your edges. You know, there's darkness there too. And all the way to the top and bottom. You know, you can dab, you can twist. And leave some little negative spaces there for where the light filters through the trees. We've got all that lovely sky background to glow in behind there. That's one of the reasons you do this in 2 stages. Okay. And have some denser areas. Some areas that have spaces. Maybe a little denser on the bottom where there's less light. You can maybe simulate some branches here. Some little marks. Up to you how you want to proceed with this. Just enjoy the process and do some mark making. Okay, so then our big tree, I'm going to add some of the red to it. And this actually is a birch. And it's a funny tree because when we landscaped, we buried the tree in more soil, and it ended up making a second tree 3/4 of the way up. But I won't be putting that in. It looks a little strange. But you might, if you're looking at the picture of it, you'll see it. Okay, so it has a slight lean, which is interesting. And start from the bottom because that's our biggest shape. And then work your way up. Give it some character. I know the tendency is to start from the top. Well, then all your thickness is up there, but you want the tree is thicker at the bottom. And we don't want it obscure too much of a beautiful background. So then we'll add some nice tree limbs. Make them interesting. Cross them over. Should be thicker there. Okay. And head them every which way. You can often tell an artist's style by the way they paint trees. You can say, aha, that's a Turner tree or a Picasso tree, or if you painted any. Okay, and then we have the last tree is an evergreen. So it's nice to vary the types of trees as well. And a totally different treatment. I'm going to bring it back down in here rather than having it to the top. And it has this gesture of the needles coming out in a certain way. Again, keep it quite dark. It will print lighter. And it gets bigger and bigger as you get to the bottom. Give it as much character as you want. We're not going to bother with much of a stem here. You see it slightly. Okay. So, okay, foliage on the, not a lot. This tree is fairly old. It doesn't produce as many leaves as some of the other ones, which was good in our case here because, again, we don't want to obscure this idea of dusk very much. So here and there. And then, of course, as soon as we finish that, we have to let it dry. So lots of foliage here. And it's sort of nice to bring that tree into this one, so it ties it together. Okay, I think we have it mostly under control. You at home, of course, can take way more time than I can. Again, let's let this dry. I'll have a quick peek at the first one to see. We've got a white space here, but I don't mind it. I think it's interesting. And there's some in the clouds. We're going to dry this with my little handy tool, and we'll be right back. Okay, we've dried it about as much as we can. Now it's time to flip it back over. The plate is dry. And now we're going to add water to the back. Now again, don't oversaturate it because it will buckle. Just enough so that it wets the paper. This is a little more tricky than the first step, but and make sure that that edge is going to print. You could try a thin watercolor paper, but I think a good quality drawing paper works not too bad. Okay, we're just damping off the back. Not too much because the moisture has to go through. Okay, we have a little bit of a bump. I don't know if we can get the baron to take that out. Just smooth it with your fingers and I think it'll be fine. And just to make sure you don't have any bumps in it, I'm going to put some weight on it. And now this time you have to wait quite a bit.
Yeah.
Oh yes, good old Jansen comes in handy again. This is a marvelous book, people. You really have to keep it in your library, refer to it all the time. I know the internet is wonderful for imagery, but you know, I love books and reading them. There's a special je ne sais quoi with reading a book, and it just gives you a little more insight. Jansen. A commercial for the day. Okay, we're going to wait. I'm sorry, but we have to wait. So, yep. Well, we're at the reveal stage. There's a couple of little flaws in the paper, and I don't think they'll show in the front. So here we go. Coming up pretty well, taking up most of the color. Whoops. Just a slight problem here. What happened there? But we can correct that. Just we can put it exactly on the print and just brush it in, and we should be able to do it wet. I don't know how that happened, but these things do happen, so it's a good way to learn to fix it. Okay. In a future episode, I will show you continuing wet, where we're putting it down, it's wet, and we print, and we take it off. So this is with the drying phases. Just a tiny, tiny bit more black. Maybe add some of that red. Just make it a little bit darker. Right in there. Okay, almost there. The paper might have been a little bit wetter there. So trial and error until you get it right. Much better. Okay, there's a little spot there. So ordinarily, with most prints, you have to work on the print itself after it's been printed, but this way you can fix things on the plate, and then it continues to maintain that printed look. Anyway, you get the idea of how to fix it when there's a few pieces missing. I mean, we could do something here, but it's sort of in the sky as well, so I don't really worry about it. And now this and this is good. Well, this one, you know, in comparison to this one, has, you know, much more vividness, especially when you put that red right here and the vermilion next to it. That really sings. And I've lightened up the blue, but it's darker here, which is closer to that feeling of that dusk. So, and the vermilion here is quite lovely. If you like bright colors and you want to try something like this, you know, check out dusk. And especially dusk right now when there are fires in the area. We're getting a little bit of smoke, not too much. And we get these really brilliant sunsets and dusks. So, well, thanks again for joining us, and take care of yourselves. Be safe in this climate of forest fires, and you know, look after your families and be kind to one another. Bye for now.